Good morning, Raiders. This is your senior political correspondent, Alan Alvarez, and today is going to be day 5 of our debate between Coach Sellen and Mr. Rodriguez, and the topics are going to be about national defense and foreign policy, so enjoy it. And now here's the 5th and final question. What are your candidates' views on foreign policy? Mr. Sellen, can you respond to that?
Well, thank you, Alan. As I've taught you in class, the number one responsibility of the president is to keep the American people safe. In the last 4 years, my administration has kept the American people safe. We have been relatively free of any further terrorist attacks on our soil, and if you would have to grade my administration on foreign policy and national defense, I think you would have to give it a very high grade. Now, besides that, I think after I became president, America's standing in the world improved. In fact, in a lot of places, I'm a celebrity around the world. You know, I go around the world and millions of people show up. They didn't do that for George W. Bush now, did they, Alan, huh?
Oh, I think they showed up for George W. Bush. I saw them. They even made big puppets of him.
Okay.
It depends on what part of the world you're going to.
Oh, I see. Well, I think the Arab Spring occurred in part because of my administration and the hope that I gave Arab peoples who previously lived under dictatorships. I think everywhere around the world, people look at myself and my administration as a beacon of hope, and therefore I think you'd have to grade my administration quite high on foreign policy.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Sellen. Now, Mr. Rodriguez, can you respond to what he said?
Yeah, well, they've taken, you could see some of the respect America's gotten by what's happened in Benghazi. And, my heart goes out to the family of our own Americans who were killed in Benghazi by terrorists, who the president, for some reason, thought it was based on some video that they attacked, but in fact it was a terrorist attack, and they fumbled that all up, and you could look that up, and we could fact check that later. But
Alan, I'm sorry, but Mr. Romney has never been president of the United States. I'm sorry, I'm going to interrupt, okay? Alan, you're not taking control of this debate anyway, so I'm going to. Now listen.
Mr. Coach, can you please respectfully allow him to finish his response, please? Go ahead, Mr.
I'll see you in class, Alan.
Thank you, Alan, for setting him straight.
I'm going to see him in class.
National security is the number one issue. It is, we got to keep America safe. Now, the president has taken an approach of leading from behind, and the fact is, we are 4 years closer to a nuclear Iran. And if the president is reelected, we will be 8 years closer to a nuclear Iran. And if we elect a Democrat after that for 8 terms, we will be 16 years closer.
That's a good idea.
To a nuclear Iran.
If I can serve for 12 years, let's do it.
Okay, now
we know that's what the Democrats want. They want a dictatorship. That's the kind of governments they've been supporting. Look at some of the governments, and one of the things that we haven't heard from the president, and I'm going to move away from the Middle East because we've seen what happens and we see how people treat us there. We have not heard the president talk about Latin America. Latin America is.
Are we going to get back to the Mexicans? Is this about Mexicans again?
No, this is not
okay.
Mexican.
Why does everything come back to Mexicans? I don't understand.
Because it's right there. If you pull those blinds up, you'll see it.
What?
That's how close we are. And
that's Miss Charles' room right there. You're talking about Miss Charles' room, okay?
Have you ever been inside of her room?
Thank God, no, I have not. Okay, I'm glad. Okay.
Now, well,
I do not want to go in an English classroom. The kids.
Now there is something we could agree on.
I better not say what the kids say on camera, right? I better not say that.
The fact that the president has not addressed our neighbors, there are such emerging markets in Brazil, in Mexico, Cuba. Fidel's about to die, and we got to figure out what resorts to build in Cuba. There is a whole market that will equal the size of China's market. We don't have to rely on China if we just built better relations with Latin America. We complain about 30,000 people being killed in Syria. We have 60,000 people being killed in Mexico, and the president has not done that. In fact, the president supported a policy that allowed weapons to go into Mexico, get into the hands of drug dealers, so that we could trace the weapons. And we had an American Border Patrol agent killed as a result of those weapons. Yeah. Now, Mr. President, I would like to know, where does your candidate stand on our neighbors to the south?
Can you respond quickly to what he said?
Quickly?
Well, we're out of time here. It's planned debate, so.
I see. I have always supported the Latin American region. Our free trade agreements have lifted the economies of these.
Hugo Chavez.
I am not a supporter of Hugo Chavez. He embarrassed me that day when he walked up to me on camera and gave me this book, okay? What am I supposed to do? Okay? I mean, the cameras were rolling, okay? Listen, let me ask you this, Mr. Rodriguez. You keep talking about Mexicans and Hispanics. Why do three-fourths of them in the polls support me and not you? Why is it that most of them support me?
I don't know what polls you're looking at.
Well,
Are you looking at the Cuban vote in the polls? Because the Cubans who want to keep Cuba isolated as if Cuba's still some great threat. Because if you look at the polls in California, Hispanics are predominantly on my side. Now, not all of them.
Alan, have we gone over this in class, okay? Is this another case of Romnesia, okay?
I had it.
The Hispanic vote is overwhelmingly pro-Obama in California.
Well, look at
where you been?
Well, look at this. I'm talking about the businesses, though. What about Latinos who own businesses? The job-creating Latinos. Those are on mine. That's the ones I'm talking about.
Excuse me, Mr. Rodriguez. We're running out of time here, so we would now like to close this debate with closing statements. So what do you guys have to say?